Hi, welcome to episode 3
of Tina Chat with Harry and Pat.
Tina Chat with Harry and Zara.
It's just forever going to be known as Tina Chat with Harry and Pat.
I mean, I guess the more you say it, the more it's... You know what, it doesn't... As long as people listen, that's, they can call it what they like. That thing I put on in the background while I'm doing the washing, no one ever, I don't know.
I know. We must add in this episode, if you hear any noises, it's our neighbour's grandson. Bless him.
Bless him.
He's playing out in the garden.
Which is fair enough.
And we've got...
It's probably what we should be doing.
Playing out in the garden?
Well, yeah. No?
Well, how old are you? 5?
27. I can still play out in the garden if I want to.
Well, you can go join them once we're done recording.
No, I'm not going to do that.
We're only now realising how good our microphone is.
It's either that or how loud he is. I don't think he's loud though, to be fair.
No, we don't normally hear him, to be fair. It just, as soon as we hit record, we're like, oh.
Yeah, I feel like we wouldn't, if we didn't have headphones on and we weren't sat recording stuff, we wouldn't really be aware of it. Anyway, we digress.
Life's for having fun, and he's having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we'll leave him be.
Carry on.
Anyway, what are we chatting about today, Harry?
So episode 3, we're going to talk about, do you need to be in London? Is London the place that you need to be as a performer, as a graduate? Is it the be-all and end-all, the epicentre, whatever you want to call it?
And I guess just advice for moving city, moving there, moving out of there.
Yeah.
Because we've done that a few times, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Cool. So, I mean, let's just start it off with the fact that, I mean, we've said previously already, I think, that we have lived in London, and we said it just now, and we've moved away. Yeah,
so let's start off by, when did you move to London, Harry?
I've been in and out of London a couple of times. I first moved to London at the end of the summer after I graduated in 2018. Wow. That feels like a long time ago.
You old.
It's not that long ago, but it isn't.
I think she moved a year after you, and I'm thinking, you're so old.
Yeah, well. Oh, so you moved, what, September?
Summer 2019.
Summer 2019.
Like June, July.
Oh, okay. Cool. So I'd have been there for 10, 11 months before you turned up.
But spoiler alert, our paths didn't cross for like another 3 years. Is that a lie? 2019, 2021, 22.
21, yeah. 21. End of 2021.
It's craziness. Anyway.
Yeah. And then moved out with COVID, as I think many people probably did. Not that everybody did, but...
Not me.
No, I did. And then over time ended up in Hertfordshire, which is obviously just outside North London, and then back into London in November of 2021 through to April of 2023.
So 18, 19, 20. So on and off you were there for about 5 years.
Yeah. And collectively it would be shorter than obviously 5 years, but yeah.
And I guess
in and around.
I was there, I moved the year after because I graduated the year after because I'm young. And then I left to do a few, I would leave for like a month or two to go do a contract and then come back. And I went home for a couple of months when COVID first happened, but I kept paying my rent, which we will get into, all that fun stuff. And then obviously moved out with Harry just this year.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Not too long ago at all. So, how we've sort of how this podcast is going to work is we've sort of made a bit of a pros and cons list of London, and we'll get into all our feelings about it all. I guess the point of this podcast is, I don't know what it was like for you, but it was definitely top for me. If you're serious about wanting to be a dancer or a performer or whatever, you need to move down to London. That's where you need to be. That's where everything's happening. That's where all your auditions are. That's if you want to take it seriously, that's where you move to.
Yeah, I think it's similar for me training as an actor as well. It's kind of the thing is, I guess it's not, in a sense, it's not. There's elements of truth in that statement or meaning. Sort of. Like you say, I think we'll get into pros and cons and this, that, and whatever. But it is definitely made to be. This is the place.
100%.
This is where you got to be. Unless, of course, you're going to the States, which is territory I have no understanding of. I've never been to the States in a creative capacity, only on holiday.
Yeah. I mean, we'll chat through all the pros and cons now, but I think it's important to note at this point that we as performers believe you don't need to be there, but there is pros of being there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good things and bad things. So let's just move on to that. Do you want to talk through the pros? I'll talk through the cons.
Yeah, I'll be the positive Polly today.
There you go.
So, a big pro of London, and obviously why so many performers and everything go down there. It is a hub of creativity. It is where there is an abundance of classes, especially for dancers. I don't know how you feel about acting classes. There's just so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and again, as a dancer, 99% of your auditions are going to be in London. Maybe that's not true, 95, but a lot of them, they're going to do a London call somewhere. So for that reason alone, you can keep training, you can keep going to class, you can go to auditions. I have done both. I have travelled for auditions from Scotland on the night bus, which is an experience, let me tell you that.
Dedication.
For me, being in London at that time was better because it meant I could wake up in my own house, get ready in my own house, not get ready on a bus and or train station bathroom at the other end, you know. And if I got cut or if I got to the end or whatever happened, I could go home after. I didn't have to wait around for the next night bus or the next train, or do you know what I mean? I didn't have any extra worries in that sense.
I can relate to that, I think, as well. When I just coming to the end of like my third year graduating kind of time, having trained in the Midlands as well. Should we maybe sort of say where we trained? Would that sort of help aid the story?
Yes, okay.
So where did you train?
I trained in Edinburgh in Scotland. Cool.
Are you going to mention where, or you'd rather not?
Yeah, why not? It's a place. Well.
You don't have to mention it if you don't want to. It doesn't really matter.
I don't know what I'll say about it in the future, so I don't know. It's a place called the MG Academy of Performing Arts. There we go.
Everyone has their own experience of places. You know?
Yeah.
Whatever people say and do is every experience and journey is, part of that individual journey, and not necessarily a sole reflection of a certain establishment. Let's put that out there.
It wasn't all bad, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, you go.
Also, though, on that, I feel like sometimes when you go to train, it's almost like staple that you come out and think, oh god, yeah, training was awful.
It's just, you have to think that as a performer. It's like a rite of passage.
My training, maybe it's a fallback.
My training wasn't awful. I need to throw that in there. I came out 100% a better dancer than I was.
Yeah, I loved my training as well. I just think there's an element of like wherever you train, London, Manchester, Bristol, Edinburgh, Glasgow,
Bulgaria,
Wales, whatever, there's always going to be people who come and go, oh yeah, the training was awful. But I think maybe that lens, as I say, it's just a reason to be, just in case it doesn't go how I expect it to go. It's the training.
I don't know. I think some people use that phrase.
There's a podcast in this.
There is. I know. We'll get back on track in a minute, but I think there's a difference between your training being awful and your experience there not being the best. Like, you can have. I'm sure there's schools out there who do not give you good training and do not prepare you for life in the industry. I believe my training definitely did do that, but there was other factors of being there that made it hard.
Well, there's so much, isn't there? There's the training as the training, and then you've got the people you're training with, the life outside of the training. Do you have like a part-time job? Are you living at home? Are you living away? Are you living with other people? All the other life stuff that also contributes to that
Yeah.
journey. Anyway,
That was a tangent. That is another
a
podcast.
bit of a tangent.
We're talking about the hub of creativity. You trained in the Midlands and you travelled.
Yeah, I used to. So you were saying that you used to come down on the night bus sometimes for auditions, and you knew you like that feeling of being able to go back to home to Edinburgh after it was done. You didn't have to sort of.
No, I didn't like that.
You didn't like that.
I
Sorry.
liked that when I moved to London, I didn't have to do a bloody 9-hour journey back home. I didn't have to.
That makes more sense.
I could go, like, say for example, which happened a lot, I went to an audition, got cut for its second round. If I had got the night bus there, that audition had been at 9 a.m. and I was done at 10 a.m. and my night bus wasn't until 11 p.m. at night, and I just had to wander around London with nothing to do.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah, I think similarly from training in the Midlands, so I trained in Birmingham. When I went there, it was Birmingham School of Acting. When I graduated, it's the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire.
Posh.
Yeah, sounds great, doesn't it? But even, that's a significantly closer distance than Edinburgh. But it still would take the whole day. You'd have, if you were going down for an audition from there, you'd have to get down there, go to your audition, even if it was a quick commercial casting in and out. And then you come back. It's a big chunk of your day that has been taken up by.
And as well, when I was in Edinburgh, I don't know if you were as well when you were in Midlands and auditioning, I was working as well, and I was training, and I was still doing all this stuff that meant if I said you get cast in super last minute sometimes. You have to not only book your travel, probably pay quite a bit of money if it's last minute, work out how you're going to get there, blah, 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 blah. But you've also got to then get it off work, and
Yeah.
Whereas I think, which we'll go into another pro being in London, is that's a bit easier to do. Anyway.
Yeah.
I guess our point for, sorry, I'm just chatting, but I guess our point for this one is the pro of it is being in London, everything's more accessible to that hub of creativity where everything is.
Yeah, it's central to it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else to say on that one? Because I sort of didn't let you talk.
No, I don't think so. I think, it is the hub of creativity. Everything's on your doorstep, essentially. You don't need to black out a whole day or whatever to make a trip to a workshop or whatever. You can work it into your life rather than having it take a chunk of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so next thing.
Well, I guess along with that, that's just a big point, but because you're in there and you're meeting so many people and that goes from just meeting people in class that you'll make friends with because you've got mutual interests and connections, or meeting casting directors and they'll do casting directors and choreographers and whoever will do workshops in London that you can go to, or just one-off classes at base, or there's so much there that is good for networking, and networking, as you know, is such a huge part of the industry. So there's a lot of who you know, and I think being there does help with that.
That'll be another podcast as well, in networking and
networking stuff. Yeah, maybe soon.
Yeah.
That's a good one. But yeah, so far, because this has been a higgledy-piggledy, it's been pro for hub of creativity, auditions, and your schedule and stuff for classes, for networking. And another pro, moving on, is you are in the West End, which is not only good because you can just walk down the road, and maybe not walk down the road, but you can go see a show whenever you want to, and I think there's
just endless amounts of
so much
theatre, isn't there? It's everywhere. You walk around the corner and there's something else.
Yeah, it's so good to be in that atmosphere, and it's good to be inspired. However, I say this, and I put this down as a pro. How many shows did you go see in the West End?
A few.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't really. I've maybe seen 4.
But still, that's 4 you might not have seen had you been somewhere else.
I've been there 4 years, and I've seen 4. That's on me. I probably should have taken that opportunity.
But I think as well, we
worked.
We were working in a theatre. When we were working as front of house staff when we met, and if you're working full time there and that's six days a week,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't necessarily want to go on your day off to the theatre.
That's true.
Because
So
it's
just so people understand, if you haven't listened, or I think we said this in another podcast, but
Yeah.
we worked in a West End theatre together. Well, you worked in one before, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
And then you moved to mine. And the schedule for that, like, the front of house jobs are very popular among performers because the schedule for that tends to be evening shows. There's a couple of matinees, but it works really well with auditions, and because it is primarily performers that do those jobs, management tend to be pretty understanding about auditions, and it's like easy to swap and change around, you know. So yeah, I guess that's another pro of being there, is like our front of house team when we worked at the Savoy was 95% performers.
Oh yeah, easily,
you know?
easily.
So again, it's great for networking, it's great for your scheduling, it's great for, which is something you don't have if you, well, you maybe won't have if you weren't to live there, you know.
Yeah, completely. But then alongside that, which goes into the next point, does it not? There's that means you're going to meet loads of people of a similar. You know what I mean?
Interest,
You'll make new friends through that. You'll meet people who are creatively inspired in the same way you are, who can, you can chat to and relate to and fall back on, and I'm struggling with, I haven't got a song for this audition or whatever. Oh, can I have a look through your rap? Yeah, sure. You know what I mean? Like there's.
Yeah, we've met some amazing people through front of house.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so that was the next point. And then I guess the last thing we've got written down really is it's fun. It can be fun. There's lots to do. It's a very busy city, and once you get used to walking at a certain pace and keeping up with the Londoners, if you're not from that sort of area, it's fun. There's so much to do. Like even out with being a performer, just being a human and finding like those breaks in between all your auditions and whatever. There's so much to do. There's so much fun to be had there.
God, absolutely. It's a city full of opportunities and experiences, and it's a huge tourist city, isn't it? Which when tourists are happy to come to a place, I think that says enough, doesn't it? That there's going to be stuff to do.
I think it's important to say that we both, well, now we are so glad we've moved out of London, and by our end point there, we wanted to leave. We both have enjoyed being there.
Absolutely.
There was both a time in our life where we loved being there.
Absolutely. It was such. I would say to anyone, regardless of whether you're a performer or a whatever, if you're looking to move to London, do it.
100%.
Live in London for a period of time, or as long as you like.
What have you got to lose except a lot of money?
It depends how much money you earn.
That's true.
We're going to come on to the cons of London in a minute, and that may be the first point. But London is absolutely worth living in. Absolutely.
I don't regret moving there at all.
No, neither do I. It was very good to both of us at a certain point in our journeys as individuals.
Another thing I'll add, actually, which is not written down, is because it is, which is so expensive, which we're going to get onto just now in the cons, but because it is really expensive, most people when they move to London will join like a house share of like other performers or whatever, and that's another great way to meet people. Like when I first moved to London, I moved in with 4 strangers I didn't know, and I think that, and they were actors or dancers, or you know what I mean, and it's just, you're sort of forced into, in a good way,
character building. Yeah. I think that's a fair point. You could, expanding. You're just expanding your network.
Yeah.
Aren't you? Again, networking.
Definitely a podcast coming soon.
Okay, so let's move on to some of the cons.
Take it away, Ari.
I think it's also, before I go into this, we should again reiterate that these are based off our experiences as individuals and collectively. You could chat to somebody else who's like, no, you got London's amazing, you got
Yeah.
to be, or somebody else who's like, no, I was born in London, whatever, and now I just need to get out. There'll be everyone's got their own story, their own feelings.
Yeah.
These are ours, and if they relate to you, then great. If they speak to you in some way later down the line, then great. If not, then that's cool.
Because everyone's situations are different as well. Like, if you don't want to go to 50 cruise ship editions a month, then maybe you don't have the same reason to be in London, or maybe there's not the right classes for you there that you want to do, or maybe you won the lottery and you can live in like this amazing penthouse. Your experience is obviously going to be different to someone else, so just take what you want from this, I guess.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to cons. So one that we may have mentioned is that it's quite expensive. It is quite expensive to live in London. As an example, we've moved up here to the northeast of England, and we are probably, I think it's fair to say, we now, for the place we're in, so we are currently in a little 2-bed house, 2 beds, it's got 2 bathrooms, we don't have to share, it's got a garden,
kitchen, diner,
a parking space for a car. Like, we are paying together what one of us probably would have paid for a bedroom in London. Yeah. So we've essentially halved our costs and more than doubled what we are living in.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, again, like, if you are lucky enough and fortunate enough to have loads of money and you can live somewhere, on your own or with whoever you want, and money is of no object, then that is amazing. Brilliant. Not necessarily the reality for a lot of people, and that can be quite tough, when it comes to you may not be able to live with the people you want to live with. You may have to live a bit further out than you want to, in a smaller room than you want to. If that works for you, then that will be, that's not a sacrifice, because you're happy to do that. If it's something that you care a bit more about, you'd like a space to recharge in, or whatever the case may be, like, I think money might come into it a bit. And not only that, the cost of living.
It's so much.
What was it? We, just before we left not long ago, I think it was February time, we were living in London. We'd come back from, I think we went back to celebrate my mum's was it my mum's, like an early birthday surprise, whatever it was. We went back to the Midlands and we went out for dinner with my family, my dad bought us a drink. So it was you, me and him. He bought us all some beer, and when he paid for it, you were like, what? How much? And it was just...
But to be fair though, see, this is what goes into so much. Because I'm from Edinburgh, our prices in Edinburgh aren't too dissimilar to London. So coming to then the Midlands, where it was like £2 for a pint of beer.
It's just, it was like we were outside of a city, essentially. Yeah, so it was all a bit. The cost of living is cheaper. I mean, even Edinburgh is probably similar to London, maybe a
tiny bit less, but not by much.
Yeah, but I think that's capital cities as well.
Yeah.
But then saying that, I reckon it'd be similar in any city, but I think perhaps London and Edinburgh are probably
I agree.
The top places that are going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to, everything costs in life. But
I think on that, just thinking about the houses and stuff and what you were saying about the rooms, again, it's so individual, because right now in this stage of life we're at, we wanted more than a room to be in. We wanted our own space, and we wanted, like, we didn't want to share a house with another 5 people. But when I first moved to London, that was absolutely not a problem for me. Like, I had no problem having a shared kitchen, and I liked living with my friends. And do you know what I mean? Like, it's...
Yeah. I've lived with friends. I've lived with strangers, and it works. It does work. It's not. You can. I mean, it's, in a sense, it's just about a switch up from families who you live with, to like a new version of that. We've all lived with other people. Yeah. It's just about adapting to the nuances of the new people, and them to you, and whatever else, and you'll find what works and what doesn't. It might be a better living situation. You never know. I think also if you're gonna go on like a night out or something, that again goes back into like my dad buying us beer thing. Like, it's expensive.
So expensive to go on a night
going
out.
out for a meal can be expensive. Going out to do things is expensive.
It is. It's a lot. Like,
so you've got all these things on your front doorstep, but you got to pay for it. I mean, some things would be better than others, I'm sure. Again, if you know people who can get you into a show for free, brilliant.
AKA networking.
If there's an experience that not even necessarily performing related, that you can go, like the Sky Garden's free.
Yeah, we've been
The restaurant isn't free, but you can go up to the Sky Garden. That's free.
Yeah, they thought your name was James there. That was funny.
They did. It's not. But there, yeah. So I think just if you're looking to move to London, if you're there, you'll already know. But
let's give them so for example, right? What's an average rent in London, would you say? So we lived. Well, we sort of lived all over the place. At the end, we both lived South East London, and we were both paying about £650 a month, including bills. Is that right?
Yeah, somewhere between 650, 700, I think.
Yeah, and that's pretty good going for the rooms we had, the houses we were in. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty average.
They were nice as well. I think that's important to say. They were for us. They were good places.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's the other thing. You could spend a lot of money on somewhere that really isn't good,
right.
And people could charge crazy amounts for stuff that is not nice because they can, and people will, pay it.
So yeah, you've got that, and then I'm just giving a breakdown of what your expenses might look like if you move to London, because I think it's important to know roughly what you're budgeting for. So about 700 a month is average. You can go right up to like.
Oh,
like
you can go
thousands, like
like a lot of money.
But for like a 4 or 5 bed house share, like 700 a month, and then you've got your travelling expenses on top of that, which I think is next to your rent is your next biggest expense, I'd say, because.
Well, you're going to probably be using public transport a lot.
The thing is, if you live near central, where you don't have to use public transport so much, or tubes or whatever, your rent's going to be more. So
you can cycle. So it's meant to be a lot of good cycling. Not that I've cycled in London, but it's meant to be quite good for cycling.
That'd be cheaper.
Although if the weather's rubbish and you don't fancy it, then you'll probably be on the train or the bus.
Yeah. So we got like 2 trains every day, I'd say, pretty much on average.
Yeah.
One to work, one back, and then sometimes we do something on our day off.
Or a bus as well, usually.
A bus, yeah. So we were definitely on transport, I would say, like 14 times a week, roughly, you think?
Minimum, I'd say.
Yeah. And we had our Oyster cards, we connected our rail cards, which is a little trick for all those people who don't know London, connect your rail card because you get discount.
It's worth it.
But we would spend maybe £40 a week?
Yeah.
If not a bit more.
Is it about 40?
About 40.
Wow.
And that's if we weren't doing anything extra. Like that's just a normal week, If there was extra weeks where we wanted to go see someone or we wanted to travel a bit further or you know what I mean, that was.
But then I think it's also to put that in the context of it, this then can relate to the job you have as well.
Yeah,
so working
true.
in front of house, you get paid on average a shift, 30...
Between £30 and £40.
Between £30 and £40. So if you think of it, you're working 8 shifts a week. One of those shifts is paying for that week's worth of travel. You then, obviously, so that's, do you know what I mean? If you look at it, and that's another way of looking at it, it's you could work your shift, say, on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, well, that's my travel earned for the week.
And as well, we're doing that as a perspective of we had to get a tube or a train or a bus into work, but you can work in a cafe and walk there,
Yeah, you don't need to work central. You didn't work more locally to you. We could have worked in South East, I suppose, if we wanted to.
And that probably would have saved us a lot of money. So again,
you
just got to do what's right for you. And then, obviously, on top of that, you've got your food expenses, you've got your class expenses, which is something I really took for granted training. Like, not paying, obviously you pay for your training, but like, now it's 10, 11, 12, £15 a class. You can only afford to do so many a week, you know?
Well, there's different things as well, isn't there? I mean, if you're a performer, you're probably going to have spotlight or something. It's another expense. Equity, if you pay for equity.
That's not London expense, though.
But these are all things that you're going to have to pay for on top of your...
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
True,
Wherever
true.
you are, if you're in London, if you're in Manchester, if you're in Edinburgh, Birmingham, wherever, that's going to be something that if you're pursuing a career as a performer, you're more than likely going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And like you say, the classes are important. The Actors Centre was something I was a part of. Unless it's changed, I feel like I at one point used to pay to be a member of the Actors Centre, but then you'd also pay for the classes on top of that if you wanted to do this particular workshop or whatever. So, that's a double the expense. Obviously, you can put these things down as
expenses in your tax return. Absolutely do that.
Like those, night bus things. If you'd got,
absolutely,
you can put those down.
That's an important thing to add, though, because you do have to think as well, which is another reason why I moved to London in the first place, because I was spending a lot of money travelling anyway. Not quite as much as I spend living in London. I do think living in London is more expensive than travelling. However, I was spending so much money anyway. It's a bit more to have that calmness on an audition day, or be able to go to extra classes. It
goes into mindset, I think, that then, doesn't it? Have you got anything else you want to add? Or?
No, we're really rambling, aren't we?
Well, it's chatting, isn't it? Tea and a chat. Although neither of us have tea.
We have water, although I'm running out.
Yeah, so I might have to get a refill. But anyway, so we're going to move on. We've been speaking about travelling. Travelling is the next point.
Yeah.
Now, at the moment, in the current climate, there are an awful lot of train strikes. I read last night that there was going to be nearly a week's worth of tube strikes. Now, that's not going to do much good for a lot of people.
The strike days in London are the worst days in London.
It's awful.
I
just want to put it out there. The tube and the transport system as a whole, I feel, is actually pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
It is a good system.
It's very easy to get around.
When it works is when it's good. When the strike's on, which, obviously there's going to be all sorts of different strikes in London because it's London and that's where Parliament and everything is, whatever. But if there's transport strikes, that can be very difficult. I mean, everyone will end up doing the same thing. If it's tubes, for example, more people are going to get on the buses. You could be waiting at a bus stop and watch 2 buses full of people go past because they can't let any more people on. I mean, I've experienced that once or twice. I mean, that can happen on a night out when there's no strikes.
Oh, it's horrendous.
So that's another thing to consider if you're on a night out.
I remember I don't know if you remember this, right? But one time I was going to an audition. I'd just come back. I had been home, I think, and I'd just come back to London. This is just when strikes had started happening. It might have been the very first one, or the very first one I had experience where the transport was affected so much. And I came back to London. I got up so early because I knew it was going to take me so much longer to get to Pineapple. And just to explain, on a normal day, I could get to Pineapple in half an hour on a tube. It was not a hard journey to do. Because there was no tubes, I went up to get a bus. But you just, on strike days, how hard is it to get a bus? I can't explain it, and if you've not experienced it, it would seem like I'm lying, but the bus stops will be crowded of 100, 200 people, just crowded.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit is when, you remember just before we had lockdowns and COVID and people were going for toilet roll and stuff like that? It's a little bit...
that kind of energy.
Yeah, like that.
Well, yeah, I went to go get the bus that morning. I waited there for 20 minutes.
Wasn't it raining as well?
It was pissing it down with rain. It was such heavy rain. And obviously I've got a red lip on, curled my hair and ready for the audition. I was not happy. I waited there for ages and buses kept coming because they were so full, and there was 200 of us at this bus stop. They weren't even stopping, they were just going right past. So in the end I had to get a random overground train that was still running, which was I squeezed myself onto this train, right? To Liverpool Street, right?
Yeah.
And then walk an hour from Liverpool Street to the audition, and I just made it with minutes to spare. Thank God I left as early as I did, but I couldn't get on another bus. I couldn't get on. There was no other trains or overgrounds or anything that were going to take me remotely close. I had to, and it took me like bloody 3 hours to get to that edition that day.
Always have a plan B, C, D, and E
through to Z, and then start
alone.
again. Because anyway, like I say, that's not like a super regular London thing, but it's happening more and more often.
It strikes the moment are obviously, still ongoing. However, it's not like something can happen and you can be stuck on a train. Something can happen before you're about to leave, and then all of a sudden that whole line's shut down. Life happens, and just be prepared that something could affect your travel if you're going by public transport. I mean, it can happen anyway, wherever you are. But I think in London, the fallback is a bit more significant because there's more people and there's just more happening.
And if you're a driver, there's just no point.
As in if you're going to drive your own car.
If you think, or especially on a strike day, like if you're like, oh, just drive to work that one day.
I had a car the second time I came to London, right, and I didn't use it, and which in itself, I sold it in the end because it was just sitting there. I was paying money for nothing. When I say that, I mean in the way of insurance and tax that I didn't need to pay. But if you are to drive in London, even in your own car, you've got potentially low emissions to pay, depending on your car. You've got congestion charge if you're driving in central. It depends whereabouts you're driving in London. But I think both those things separately are £15 a day, so that's £30 on just driving your car on top of your petrol insurance, whatever. So that's why public transport is much more realistic. But travelling.
Something to be aware of.
If you live there, the longer you live there, the more you'll be
get used to it. Yeah,
get used to it. You'll be prepared. You'll know what to expect. You leave yourself enough time to get to places. But it is a little inconvenient when it happens. Okay, so the next point is competition. So in the way of performers, there is a lot of intense competition. If you think about the amount of people in all different walks of graduation, in all the different dance colleges, drama schools, MT courses, whatever. There's so many people coming out into the industry every single year.
There's so much,
And a lot of them will come to London, but a lot of them will already be in London. And this isn't just like your 3-year courses. There's more than that. You've got 1-year courses, 2-year courses. People will do a foundation and go into
people
to
that
work.
don't even need to. They're just so good already.
There's no set avenue to doing anything. So the what was that? What am I talking about? The competition is intense, and I think that can sometimes play on your mental state.
100%.
If, for example, like we were working front of house, you could be in and around. But I'd say someone's quite negative about stuff. That can be that can be a lot. Or if there's someone who's getting auditions right, left, and centre, and you're still
compare yourself,
waiting. It's intense. There's a lot going on. There's a lot happening quickly.
Which again, I do think would happen regardless of where you are, just not as much. It's quite intense in London.
You wouldn't necessarily be in it if you weren't in it. You'd still be affected by it in some regard, but not necessarily in the same way if you're not living in the area it sort of primarily comes from.
It's a lot,
which some people might find that a good thing. Some people might, thrive on intense competition. But I would personally say it can, with a balance of earning enough money to live in London, trying to strive for a career in performing arts, and balance your lifestyle as well. It can sometimes be an extra layer, which is a bit like that's a bit much. I think for my character at least, it can be. That leads on nicely to the next thing, which was about work, extra work, life, flexibility, and balance. So it is like trying to balance all these things. So afford, having a job where you get enough money to pay for your expensive room or flat or whatever.
But not working so much.
And
you can't go to the auditions that you've come to
your
London to
workshops
do.
or your classes, and then, for example, we're going to keep probably relaying the fact that we worked front of house in a theatre, because a lot of performers do. Not that everybody does, but we did. And in that instance, most of your work is in the evenings, which is a bit antisocial for if you want a bit more of a social life. However, good if you want to go to those classes, auditions, whatever, because you can go to them in the day, still work in the evening, still pay for stuff. Those can obviously be long days, because for me, I see that as working. You may be paying to go to a class, or you may be taking time out of your day to go to an audition.
It's still working, though.
That's work. So you could effectively, someone works a 9 to 5, comes home at 6, 7, whatever. As a performer, you could get up at 9 and get home about 10:30.
Yeah.
Like do a 13-hour day. Yeah. And you could do that for a lot of the week, for like Monday to Saturday. Your day off is going to be you're not going to want to go out and socialise necessarily. Not that everyone's going to do that, but if you were to be that intense with how you perform an audition, if you're lucky enough to have multiple auditions a week and stuff.
We definitely did experience that, like us individually, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take on and process, and you're spinning all these different plates, and you've got to make sure that they're all spinning and they're all staying up, because if for example, if you miss too much work and then all of a sudden now you've got a bit of a performance review at work and you've got a prospect of being fired, that's going to affect the spinning of these other plates. You've got to keep everything going, and it is doable. It absolutely is. Otherwise no one would do it. If it was impossible, but it can take its toll. And I think as well, the first plate to fall is like as a performer, is your life / like you plate that has got nothing to do with performing. I think you get sucked up into the hamster ball your
of
mental well-being. That's what you're saying.
You get sucked up into the hamster ball of auditioning and going to class and going to work and making enough money, and it's like you go round and round and round and round, and you forget to do the stuff that makes you happy anyway. Like, of course, I'm not saying that your job doesn't, but you need to have, like, you need to be able to go out with your friends, or if you like to go on long walks, you need to have time to go on a long walk. If you like to watch Dance Mums, that's what I like to do, but if you like to watch Dance Mums, you need to make sure you've got time for that stuff as well. And I think that tends to be the first thing to go, which in turn is when you your mental health starts to decline. It's when you start to compare yourself more. It's when you start to, your happiness declines, because you're not spinning all the plates that you could be.
You're not giving enough to your well-being, which is a very important part of any life.
But I guess I feel like that's what we're taught as performers, that your whole life is your performing art, and it's not. Anyway,
not in such a term anyway.
It's your job, it makes you happy, and it can be such a big part of your life, but you're still a person and a human before you were that,
Absolutely.
Anyway,
I think the other thing on that is, though, you don't have to do all that, but the less you cut down on your work front of house, if that's what you're doing, you're then going to struggle to go out and be social if that's what you're trying to spin more of that plate.
And I definitely do think that was, if not one of the biggest thing we felt in London, is that we were spinning we need to make enough money, but we really want to go and enjoy life, and we really want to do these things, but we also really we should be doing class, and we should be, we're getting pulled in all these directions.
It's like you just said, you don't have time to necessarily think about, what do I actually want to do? Anyway, well, that just carries on. Sorry, you got something to say.
I was just going to say that goes nicely into our other podcast about Are Your Dreams Really Yours? So
yes,
go listen to that if you haven't already.
Absolutely, give that one a listen.
Anyway.
Episode 2. So, the point about life balance and everything goes into it being busy. That was our next point that we have written down. It is. Everything's busy. London is a busy, busy city. Zara mentioned it briefly earlier. You've got to sort of learn how to walk like a Londoner. You got to make sure you know which side of the escalator to stand on when you're getting on and off the tube.
Do you know what's funny though? Is give it a few months and you become a Londoner, like you suddenly start to get annoyed at the people who are walking too slow or the people that are standing on the wrong side of the escalator.
Yeah, we're both guilty of that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, you get. Yeah, it's like you know where you're going, and that's where you're going, and you don't stop in the middle.
No, you just
However, I think that's a little bit sad when you think about it. Like London is actually, there's a lot of history and beauty in London, and if you stop and look up at some of these buildings, like rather than just head down and go where you're going, you can
100%.
see some amazing things. You know, so yeah, London's busy. Be prepared for that. It can be, if you enjoy the busyness, then that's great. If not, well, just take it into perspective and do your best. Area safety is on final point of cons. Now, I think this is relevant wherever you are. You know, it's not just a thing that's significant to London. If you're in any city, town, village.
But I think it's very apparent in London, like these.
There's definitely certain areas that are not as safe as others. You can be walking in one area, turn a corner, and it's like, wow, this looks a bit different.
And you've got to remember, especially if you're working like front of house or something, you're going to be getting home late. And I will speak as a female. You want to make sure that you can get yourself home safely, you know.
I think that is obviously a big area of importance. You want to make sure wherever you are, you're safe, you're secure, you're okay.
You feel comfortable.
Yeah, or that will be such a bearing on everything else, feeling comfortable. You know, it's not necessarily as easy as you think to get a taxi in London. It's not even necessarily if that's what you want to do. It might not even be the safest option. You just don't know.
One time we will tell the story about Harry having a tantrum because he couldn't get an Uber.
I think having a tantrum was a bit tame way of putting it, to be honest.
He was very cross. He wouldn't even sit with me on the bus because he couldn't get an Uber.
Not the biggest fan of Ubers.
But it's because London's so busy. Like it's so hard to do like things that you don't even think about, you know.
I could really go on to this Uber thing, but I'm not going to. Yeah, we've got well connected written down here, which is in the middle, so that's a bit confusing. Is that good or bad, or is that just another?
I think I think
meant to be here.
I don't know. It's well connected.
Our next point is that London is well connected, as we've briefly mentioned with the tube and the transport system and everything. But I think what is actually meant by that is that London is well connected to a lot. You can travel internationally on the train from London. You get a flight in an hour over to Ireland or whatever, you know. I
think why it's here is my point was you don't need to be in London to do your auditions or your workshops and whatever, because it's so well connected to everywhere.
Absolutely.
Like I say, I came from Edinburgh. I have friends who came from Aberdeen. Like it's.
I went from the Midlands. You can go from the northeast. You can go from Manchester, from Liverpool.
Literally anywhere. Like, but you can get the Eurostar from Paris if you want. Like you literally can. There's so much you can do, and I think again I spoke about getting a night bus, but you don't have to do that. You can get trains. I did that because it was the cheapest option, and I think I put that down as like a consider your options sort of point, you know. Yeah,
it's a two-way thing, isn't it? So yeah, that's a good thing. I think it just depends what you want. It depends what you want, what's right for you. And at the end of the day, I think as long as you're doing what's right for you, everything else will fall into place in a much better way.
100%.
If you're forcing, that's saying, isn't it, a square peg in a round hole.
100%. Yeah.
It's not going to work.
I think my feeling towards all of this is that I just don't want people to think that they have to. If you do not think moving to London's right for you, or you've done it and you're like, I'm not happy here, I want to go somewhere else, I want to do something else, you don't have to be there. You don't have to. You can 100%, you know, like, this is another thing, is you can move down, do your first edition and get a job and be on a cruise for 10 months, you know, like.
That's very true, yeah. You go on a tour or something.
You never know what's going to happen, and the only thing you can ever do is trust your gut and what you feel like is right for you. So if that's moving to London, if you're excited by the idea of that, great, go do it. Go see if you like it, and even if you don't like it, you can always leave. You don't have to stay. And likewise, if you're like, no, I'm really happy at home, or I'm really happy somewhere else, and I'm happy to travelling like once a week or whatever, then do that. That's also fine. There's no one's better or worse for choosing one or the other.
Absolutely.
It's my feeling towards it all.
No, I agree.
Okay, I feel like we should finish it off by saying each, Harry, what is your advice for someone who is moving to London?
I'd absolutely say go do it. Go do it. And just be open and to everything. But be prepared. Be prepared. Do your research, I think, is a good thing. Talk to people who are already there. You're bound to... I mean, London's so full of people. You're probably going to know
100%.
someone somewhere, or someone else you know or know someone there.
And if you don't know anyone, message us. We can help.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And we know people there.
Yeah.
We absolutely know people there. What about you?
Yeah, I say do your homework. Trust your gut. Things like Hustle Homes, or like there's check Facebook groups and stuff for if you're looking for houses to move. I'd say moving with a deposit, a room deposit to put down, as well as a couple months rent is ideal. Like you want to make sure you go with a bit of money behind you.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Especially because you'll have to look for a job and stuff once you get down there. But yeah, just trust your gut is my...
Trust your gut, trust yourself, trust your ability.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want to do, so if you want to be in London, go for it.
Yeah, and I think go to London and focus on yourself as well. Like, just you're there for yourself. You're not there for anyone else. You're not there to prove anything. You're there to just live life and do whatever that is.
Enjoy
whatever
it.
it means for you.
Enjoy the experience.
100%.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say? Anything else that we've not said from our notes?
I don't.
I feel like we mentioned all that.
No, I think we're good. I think that's probably long enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can probably gauge how we, at our current stage in life, feel about London. But it's all about the individual. And that's the main point is that, I think.
100%. Anyway, thanks for listening to us.
Yeah.
Ramble on about that.
Come back and listen to our next one. Whatever that may be. At some point in the future. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Of course, if any questions, just drop us a message or an email and we will respond.
We will. The email is info@portsacademy.co.uk, so just drop any questions or suggestions, anything you like, just pop it in there.
You can also find us on Instagram or Facebook. Yeah, we love you. Thanks for listening.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheerio!
Bye.